Back to the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BOL, alongside team expert Jimmy Stein and site publisher just below us there in the bottom square. Mr. Tim Watts will be joined by Andrew Bone, also senior recruiting editor for BOL, later in the program to talk recruiting. But guys, we have no shortage of topics following a Final Four Saturday night in Glendale, Arizona. By the way, Charlie Potter of our staff, lights out on the coverage. We certainly want to commend him for that. But
he eclipsed the coverage.
Oh gosh, the dad
Hey,
jokes. Hold on, let me see. 41 seconds in. Yeah.
That works.
I thought you would show up with your glasses on already, Tim. I thought
I'm ready. I am ready for this thing. I don't know when it's happening, but I'm ready.
I think it's like 2:00 Central for Alabama, so we'll see. Anyway, it was kind of like a Haley's Comet, I guess you could say, with Alabama in the Final Four. Gosh, this is just getting worse. But the Crimson Tide, guys, in all seriousness, hell of an effort against an elite, perhaps generational type of UConn team, or at least a 2-year run that you might look back on and say, boy, that was one for all time. But Crimson Tide falls by 14 out in Glendale. Game was closer than that, Tim. And boy, Alabama with a first half that pretty much did everything they needed to do. We're still down 4. And it just felt like UConn was going to have that one more run in it. And perhaps the baskets were going to ultimately come a little bit easier for UConn than for Alabama. And maybe that's the way it played out.
The thing about UConn is, like, most teams have an off game. Even when Creighton beat them, it wasn't an off game. I mean, they still played. I mean, as well as Alabama played, which I thought was really excellent basketball. I mean, they shot 50% from the field, 40% from three. Would they have a handful of turnovers? They do all those little things. It's just hard to get any separation from them. I thought in most games, there's not many teams Alabama wouldn't have been all over. I mean, they played a great game, but there's not many teams in the country, Purdue, NC State, other Final Four teams, that Alabama would not have been all over on Saturday night. They were having a good game. UConn just doesn't leave a lot of room. I mean, they're like an anaconda. If you take a breath, they squeeze tighter. They just don't have an off game. And if they don't have one tonight, you're right. This is a damn near unprecedented 2-year run for UConn and the Huskies.
Yeah, Jimmy, I think we've talked about it before. The draw for Alabama, in some ways, I don't think anyone would argue in this tournament, worked out, especially in the first couple of rounds. Ultimately, maybe the draw caught up to Alabama in the semifinals because, to Tim's point, I think if Alabama had gotten Purdue again Saturday night, especially watching Purdue, and look, different opponents, different styles, I get all of that. But if the performances had been similar for those two teams in the semifinals, we might very well be talking about Alabama playing on Monday night. That didn't work out that way, but I guess it's fair, right, to sense disappointment in a big way for a team, but then also just an overwhelming sense of admiration. It's a little bit of mixed feelings at its best with this run in this team.
Yeah, there's no moral victories at Alabama, not even for Alabama basketball. It was disappointing to lose because I think Alabama really played well, particularly the first 32 minutes of the game. I thought Alabama was playing toe-to-toe with the best program in all of college basketball. I think Alabama proved their run to the Final Four wasn't flukish. They were literally one of the very, very best teams in the sport once the NCAA tournament got underway, and they proved that against UConn. Like you guys have said, I agree. Had they played virtually anyone else, it might have had a different outcome. But UConn's not just the best team this year. They're one of the best teams in recent college basketball history. I think they're better than they were a year ago when they won the national championship. There's just no flaws. Even the coach, has referred to his team as bulletproof, and they live up to that. I think they've lost 3 times all year. Great team, but boy, what a run by Alabama again. No moral victories, but I'm not ashamed to admit that literally when zeros hit the scoreboard, I was in my living room standing and applauding Alabama. Not the loss at all, and not the way they played the last 8 minutes, but the run that gave all Alabama lifetime basketball fans a thrill, something they've been waiting to see forever. And this team is who delivered it to us. And I was so happy for them that they got to experience this, and happy for myself that I got to experience that. It was great, but the last 8 minutes of the game was a little disappointing based on how they had played the first 32 minutes.
Tim, this is a team forever now. You make the Final Four, never happened before. I know everyone wants a new arena at the University of Alabama. I personally think to make a Final Four, it will be very appropriate to hang that banner in venerable Coleman Coliseum, where there has been, unbeknownst to a lot of folks, a lot of basketball history, a very credible basketball history. But when I look at this team, kind of reminds me of 92 Kentucky in a way, the Unforgettables, when you had Jamal Mashburn and a bunch of Kentucky guys around him, and they made that run to the 8 and should have beat Duke and gone on to the 4. But just your perspective on maybe how this team will be remembered moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be one of those things where every time we see plays from this season, no matter how old you are, you'll reminisce to this season. When you see a play 10 years from now of Grant Nelson dunking on the UConn big, you'll remember where you were at, what you were doing. You'll remember that season, how they got here. I don't think anybody's going to, forget Mark Sears. I mean, we can discuss the Mount Rushmore, where he's at. Is he on it? Just one of the, like, again, me and Travis, it hit us a couple of pods ago. We were like, we don't even talk about Mark. We come in this like, who's surprised, who stood out? We don't even mention Mark. It's Jordan. He's not as good as Jordan, I'm saying, but he was so consistent.
24 again on Saturday night in a dome.
We don't even, like it was nothing. We don't even talk about it. But, to me, I think it is. I think this is a huge deal. You've got a Final Four banner. It's a big deal. That's a win. It's not a championship, but it is the next best thing to a basketball championship. You shot 50%. You had less than double-digit, almost 50% of three. You had less than double-digit turnovers, and you lost. That's how good of an opponent you were, but that's how friggin' good you played. And outside of that run at the end, that was a battle. I think UConn will tell you. And I'll be surprised tonight if UConn doesn't run Purdue right off the court.
Yeah.
I think they might be. I think that test right there, I think they'll actually be mad. They had somewhat of a contested game. I think Purdue's got their work cut out for them. Purdue's good, obviously, with the big guy sitting in there, but I don't think you can really right now. I think it's too soon. It's almost like the day after Saban retired, reminiscing. I think the day or 2 days after the basketball team makes the Final Four, I think in a week it'll mean a lot more to us, even that it does now. And I think it means everything to so many people as of Monday morning.
Yeah, I agree with I'm Matt here in the comments. And by the way, if you'd like to chime in, we'd certainly love to hear from you. Any thoughts, suggestions, questions, we're open to them in the comments. I agree. I think if Purdue's guards aren't better than they were against NC State, this will get ugly, because I thought UConn did a good job on Sears and on Alabama's guards, and Sears still had 24. Yeah. But if they play the way they did defensively against these Purdue guards, I don't care if Edey goes for 30 plus, Jimmy. I don't think that's going to be enough. And so when we talk about the standard now, because there has been a standard for Alabama men's basketball, again, a lot of people may not be aware of that outside of the fan base. But where does it go to now, Jimmy? I mean, it was win SEC titles, compete for SEC titles. Nate has taken this thing to another level entirely.
Well, it can't be to expect Final Fours every season. I mean, no one does that. I mean, not even the UConns or the Dukes are in the Final Four every season. But what I think where the conversation has changed, guys, as long as Nate Oats is at Alabama, where the conversation has changed is now in the preseason. I don't know that people will say, can this be a team that wins the SEC? It might be, can this be a team that gets back to the Final Four? And it's kind of, I don't know if you want to set it at an expectation, but it's a reasonable hope, assuming things continue the way they've been with recruiting. And recruiting is outstanding. Recruiting is what got Alabama there in the first place. Recruiting, evaluation, recruiting to a system that's been validated, a system that works. I think that the answer ultimately, though, is now there is an annual hope with Nate Oats that this is yet another Final Four team. And that's exciting. We just can't freak out when it doesn't happen. It's very, very difficult to get to the Final Four. I just saw over the weekend that UConn is the first defending champion to get back to a Final Four since 2007. So
Florida?
It's Florida. Yeah. So it's really, really difficult thing to do is to repeat an appearance.
Yeah, you think about some of the recent teams, even like a Baylor with Scott Drew, the teams that they had 4 or 5 years ago, and weren't able to do that. Go ahead, Tim.
I tell you one thing I think this has taught Alabama fans, because, a lot of fans, they're fans, but they pick up kind of when football's over, and they're kind of carrying that toughest part of the schedule in the SEC. I think it's taught you this is a long season, right? And basketball is a funny sport. I mean, this is not, 100 years from now, if they showed a team of basketball experts, 10 Alabama teams that said, pick which one went to the Alabama went to the Final Four, nobody's picking this team. Nobody's picking this team because Alabama's had so many talented teams and such hot streaks. I think this has taught a lot of fans that it's not over literally until it's over. I mean, you can make a run. You just saw a very improbable run from an Alabama team. I mean, if you count the number of people that voiced an opinion that said, we're going to be out of that tournament quick, or they're going to make some kind of run. I think a lot of it was an early out. We saw it on the message board. I had friends saying it. There was some doubts about this team, and I don't care about the seeding. Grand Canyon was a good basketball team. I don't care what they say. I don't know if they just caught on later. They didn't have much of a schedule. I imagine people didn't want to play them, but they were a good basketball team. This was a really good win. So I think just a learning experience is unbelievable. I agree, high expectations, but also now maybe not the overreaction to a loss. Hopefully, that happens in, early January, late February.
And Jimmy, this is the type of thing that opens even more doors for your program in terms of visibility, something Nate has really hammered. I mean, people look at the scheduling that Nate does and kind of shake their head a little bit. This most recent season back in November, December, for more on that, play anybody anywhere. But you think about the type of stages now that this program will only advance to. And then, also when the NCAA selection Sunday rolls around, Alabama right now will resonate. Remember how hard it was for Alabama if they were a bubble team? And we can talk about analytics, guys. We can talk about all that stuff. But at the end of the day, humans go in that room and make those choices. So not even just from a standpoint of getting into the tournament, but when you think about seeding, guys, Jimmy, what that could help you with, because it does matter. You can say it doesn't, but it absolutely does.
Yeah, Alabama now checks every box. I mean, every box to be checked about, in terms of who are the great teams in the sport right now. Alabama's won the SEC multiple times. Alabama's won the SEC tournament. And I'm talking about just recently under Nate Oats.
5 years.
Won the SEC tournament, won the SEC 3 Sweet 16s, not just one run, not just, hey, yeah, we've made the tournament 6 times, but we always lose early. And then this one time we made a run to the Final Four. No, Alabama's made a run to the Sweet 16 3 times and now to the Final Four. And most importantly, above all, they're recruiting alongside the teams that you traditionally expect to see high in the recruiting rankings, like the Dukes and the Kentuckys, in Kansas. Alabama's signing multiple McDonald's All-Americans and then developing them into NBA first-round picks. That's unlikely to happen with this group that we just saw in terms of this upcoming June. But Alabama's had tremendous success under Nate Oats in the NBA draft. So every single box is checked, and there's no reason not to consider Alabama right now among those same teams you look at every year: Duke, Kentucky, Kansas. Alabama should have the same weight as those teams, at least for right now.
And Tim, as we do this live right here on the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com, by the way, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, we certainly hope you'll do that right now. Hit a like button for us too, if you don't mind. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our content as it drops. Something else that happens when you do what Alabama basketball has done over the last 5 years is that other fan bases, other programs really covet your coach. And it's been a wild 24 hours here as we're understanding that it looks more and more like John Calipari will move on from Kentucky to Arkansas, leaving that Kentucky job open. And as you might expect, because of the job Oats has done at Alabama, He's a popular name right now among those in the Big Blue Nation. So put us with the concern level as we sit here right now at mid-morning on Monday. What you think about this connect the dot sort of approach for perhaps Nate Oats and Kentucky?
I just think if you date the prettiest girl in school, you're going to have to worry about other guys trying to date her as well. I mean, Nate Oats is one of the most, not only is he considered among his peers as one of the best coaches in the country, fast rising. I mean, then the final run, it's totally visible. It makes sense. And he's been linked to every job. This because it's similar to Saban when Saban was here. You know what I mean? If the Canuck Canadians football team open, Saban was the leader for the job. So it's not surprising that Nate Oats has been mentioned for Louisville, Ohio State. Remember when Michigan opened, he was gone, all that stuff. So Kentucky certainly makes sense. I mean, we're basketball guys. We love it. We know what Kentucky is. It's an amazing program. It's a blue blood. The fact that they were trying to get rid of a coach like Calipari tells you they're the bluest of blue bloods, because they were like celebrating it. Last night was just insane where it happened. I was like, no way he walks away from $33 million. And then as it built up and the Kentucky fans, Arkansas fans were like, please. And then Kentucky fans were like, yes, please. So that's how much of a blue blood they are. So, I mean, I know everybody thinks $18 million isn't a lot of money. We got a lot of rich people on the round table. They just throw around $18 million. It's not a big deal. But 18 is a deterrent. That's why it was there, and it wasn't like Kentucky, Calipari, as far as the fans not liking him or being on the hot seat and all that, his name's been there a couple of years now. I think their last Sweet 16 was maybe 2019. I think I saw that this morning. So, I mean, that's quite a run for Kentucky not to make the Sweet 16. They're certainly not used to that. So, I think obviously he's a name that's going to be mentioned, but Kentucky's going to shoot for the stars. Dan Hurley was a name I've seen. I actually want to see him. I want to see Nate Oats stay at Alabama, and I wouldn't mind seeing Dan Hurley at Connecticut. I think that would be interesting. I don't think it'll necessarily happen, but I mean, $18 million is still $18 million. Scott Drew's a name that's been mentioned. So right now, I mean, Nate Oats just got back home yesterday from a Final Four. I don't think we're going to hear a whole lot that, quickly, but last night that happened in an hour.
Oh,
So
gosh.
that happened. Yeah, that was the burn, baby, burn. That was an awesome thread on the round table. We had a lot going on. So I'm not concerned right now other than the obvious. He's a good coach, but I think if the Knicks opened up, I think you could hear his name. I think he's going to be that kind of commodity no matter what.
And Jimmy, Cal really did Kentucky a solid because he did walk away from the 33 million. So the Cats owe him zero. So 18 million these days, and with SEC money, that spends pretty good. I mean, I'll go pretty far. I was asked this morning if I thought Greg Byrne would go back in and amend the recent extension and perhaps the buyout. I give Greg Byrne a lot of credit. He was ahead of this with that extension and the buyout. But as we know, things change quickly in the world of college sports these days.
18 million, like Tim said, it is a deterrent and it is significant. I mean, it's a lot of money, even for people that have a lot of money. 18 million is a lot of money. And if you're Mitch Barnard at Kentucky and you can get Nate Oats, or you think you can get Nate Oats, but it's going to cost you 18 million, and that's before you even pay Oats. It's going to cost you 18 million, or you can get Scott Drew and it's significantly less. That's going to be a factor. It's going to be a huge factor. But is it prohibitive? Probably not. I mean, I think if Kentucky feels like they have to move on, or they're happy to move on from a coach with what Cal's accomplishments are, I don't think spending 18 million is going to, be a stop sign for them. I think if you make that sort of change, and as we know, it's not Kentucky, it's Cal walking away because Kentucky didn't want to pay him 33 million. But if it was just so easy to come up with 18, then they might have come up with 33 to make the change, and they weren't going to do that. I think that's pretty obvious. Kentucky was not going to fire Cal and pay 33 million. But I think I'm not too worried about Nate Oats going to Kentucky just yet, but I do think that there's reason for concern. There's reason for Alabama fans to monitor this for just this reason. If Alabama's football job was open and Alabama football thought, who we need to hire? Mark Stoops. then 100% of Alabama fans would expect him to take the job. Whether it's true or not, 100% of Alabama fans would think, oh, of course he would leave Kentucky football to be the coach at Alabama. So that's how Kentucky fans are probably viewing Alabama and Nate Oats.
Tim, I'm good at spending other people's money, like everybody else on the roundtable at BamaOnLine. So I say, if you're Greg Byrne and you go back in on this thing, you just put the trigger clause in there for Nate, where he's top 3 in college basketball, regardless of how things shake out. That being said, everything we've heard from Nate to this point hasn't really centered on money or prestige or the things that come with a job like Kentucky. He has been consistent in saying he likes the environment at Alabama. He likes the athletic department. He likes the all-encompassing success that Alabama is having right now. And he has also been consistent, Tim, in saying he has everything he needs to win at the highest level with the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, there's a lot there's a lot of factors that go into this. As a fan, you just think, hey, you just got to move. But even going back to Kalen DeBoer, you had to move from Seattle to here. For some people, that was quite the obstacle. Some of them are still moving within the last month. That's how long it takes. So it's not that simple. He's got daughters. He's got family. He's settled in Tuscaloosa. That factors in. I always found it odd. There was the $18 million buyout was for 2 years, right? And then it drops to 10, I believe. So that's sort of like a 2-year window. I'm going to be here, or I expect to be here. And Jimmy's right. I mean, if he's your guy, $18 million is worth investing. But at the same time, we've been told the Kentucky football staff wasn't extremely happy with their NIL at the moment. I mean, there was a lot of rumors that Stoops was trying to get out of there at one point. 18 million is still 18 million. That is NIL money. That's building something money or whatever. But regardless, I feel like Greg Byrne put a great contract together. I agree with you. Nate Oats has said all the right things, and I agree with everybody who says, hey, it's Kentucky. It absolutely is Kentucky. It's a great basketball program. But also, when you're Kentucky, there's a certain kind of arrogance and confidence, maybe is a better word, that I'm going to win if Tim Watts is the coach. You know what I mean? I'm going to get – has there ever been a time where, Kentucky didn't have talent? They're going to get talent. People are, drawn to that brand. Cal was obviously the big name. Tubby had good players. They've always had good players. I'm sure as a Kentucky fan can tell me a time they weren't. But for the most part, they're going to have talent, and they're going to get a good coach. It doesn't have to be Nate Oats or Hurley. It could be they're going to get a good coach. Billy Donovan was a very interesting name I've seen mentioned just among people speculating, but he's very interesting because he's kind of been in a loop there, with the Bulls in the NBA.
Yeah, and boy, you can go back to 20 years ago that Kentucky's been trying to hire Billy Donovan. It seems like, but again, another interesting piece to all this now with UK coming open, apparently, and again, just a magical run for Alabama hoops in the NCAA tournament. Guys, that's as much basketball as we'll ever talk, maybe, in the month of April. We'll see. Nate's got some plans about that, I think. But let's talk about scrimmage number 2 from the football side of things in the books in Tuscaloosa over the weekend. Jimmy, I'll start with you. A couple of things that maybe caught your attention from those that were there, maybe from Kalen DeBoer's post-scrimmage comments. The first thing I always look at is, or listen for, is injuries. And it sounds like Alabama came out of it in pretty good shape. Sands, Jaden Roberts, and a lower extremity injury. But even DeBoer after practice, I think Kalen had one of his official, by the way, I'm at Alabama moments when he was asked about an injury by the media for a closed scrimmage in the post-scrimmage comments. Your thoughts on that?
I really think the injury to Jaden Roberts to me is not so much the huge story, because that's not going to really have an impact on the fall. I think Jaden Roberts is hurt for now, and he may, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he missed a day over the injury, but he'll be fine for summer work and fall camp. But the offensive line itself that Kalen DeBoer addressed when practice was over, there's the Jaden Roberts injury. So he's, I'm guessing here, but probably out for a day. It seems significant. Parker Brailsford, he addressed that, when practice was over, indicating that Parker Brailsford's not transferring, his words, not transferring. He's in the program working, at Alabama. and is in Alabama's plans.
Which is what BOL said, to be clear. We said the whole time, while everybody else is putting him in the portal, everybody else had already known. We said this the entire time, that he was just kind of going through stuff. Sorry, Jimmy.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. DeBoer confirming BOL's reports. He should have said that, frankly. I'm here to confirm BOL's reports that have been 100% accurate the whole but to me, that I think that's the story for now, is the offensive line, because if you look at this upcoming Saturday, A-Day, it looks as though the offensive line for Saturday might be, based on scrimmages and based on the injuries, Elijah Pritchett at left tackle, Tyler Booker at left guard, James Brockermeyer at center, Rock Montgomery at right guard in place of Jaden Roberts, and Wilcom Formby at right tackle. That looks to be very probably the lineup for next Saturday. But if we're to guess what the lineup was going to be for Western Kentucky in August, I would only have one of those 5 guys in the same spot. I would project Tyler Booker, of course, to still be the starting left guard. But you might have Brailsford at center and not Brockermeyer. You get Jaden Roberts back from his ankle injury per his mother on Twitter this morning. Maybe the right tackle is Elijah Pritchett, who will be on the left side this Saturday. Maybe he'll be on the right side, or that could be a transfer portal guy. And then you have probably Caden Proctor at the left tackle spot this fall. So to me, what's just really interesting right now is the offensive line. There'll be a lot of eyes on it, but don't get used to looking at this group. I don't think it'll be the group this fall.
Tim, I know you've been really high on Quay Rusal, and it sounded like, once again, he stood out in practice work, in scrimmage work. The defensive side of the ball, the front 7 in general, it sounded like responded to scrimmage number 1 when they gave it up a little bit, maybe on the ground. And when you think about the pieces coming back in that front 7, that would certainly make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and also you got the swarm factor, where they're seeing in that defense for the first time is probably pretty, picking up bandits, guys blitzing pretty consistently. I mean, obviously a lot of talent up there, and guys, we've heard stories about, the thing about it is, when you hear those stats, Keon Keeley had some sacks, but it's also, is he going at the first, second, or third team? When you're comparing quarterbacks, and this not take away from anybody, but it's not all apples. Sometimes it's apples to pineapples. It sounds the same, but if you've never seen those two fruits, but if you have, it's different. There's a difference between the 1-team defense and the 2-team defense. If you're Jalen, Ty, Austin, or Dylan. But yeah, it sounded like the defensive front wreaked havoc. I don't think it helped. Not, I think the experimenting, what can these guys do in these situations, is certainly full blown. The portal is going to be interesting because, man, when you get to the price tags of guys in the portal who are good, I think offensive tackles are going to be right up there with the NFL draft. I think quarterback, I think initially in the portal, we thought maybe quarterback, but I think tackles, defensive line, anybody in the trenches, I think is going to be that top priority and get the biggest thing, because there's going to be quarterbacks all over the place, and you know what you're dealing with there.
Yeah, plug and play tackles are going to be expensive. They're gonna take care of a lot of your NIL. I would think. Yeah, absolutely. Immense value there. And Jimmy, as we know, we always like the quarterback updates. Sounds like Ty Simpson was very good in a lot of ways. Jalen had his moments too. Then you get to the younger guys, Austin Mack, Dylan Lonergan. Again, positive stuff really from 1 through 4 at that position.
You have to like the depth of talent in that room right now. There's a depth of talent. I think it's a dramatically different situation than a year ago when you had some talented kids like a Milroe, like a Simpson, but it's not just talent. It's, are you ready? I mean, Austin Mack and Dylan Lonergan are really talented kids. I think we know this, but are they ready to be starting quarterbacks in the SEC? That's a different question than are you gifted? Because are you gifted is a big part of the equation. Are you ready is an equally big question. Obviously, Milroe, with his experience, he's ready. I think Ty Simpson, what the question with him is he now ready? He didn't look ready in game 3 a year ago. He looked okay. I think probably wasn't given enough credit for his performance in the second half, leading Alabama to a win, by the way, on the road against a team that ultimately played in a bowl. Probably didn't get enough credit, but he also didn't look ready to be a starting quarterback in the SEC. But boy, he got those QB2 reps all through the end of last season, looked really good in games 10 and 11 last year, looked more ready. Now all the reports from the spring are very positive about Ty Simpson, a former 5-star quarterback. We shouldn't be surprised at all that he's now ready. That makes it a good situation for Alabama. Now you got 2 guys who are talented kids who are ready to be starters in the SEC with 2 gifted kids behind them. I think probably more like a year out on Austin Mack and Dylan Lonergan both.
Yeah, that'd be sensible.
The thing about Ty, they had that when we were in school, they said put you in a locker. Where Bama fans will put Ty in the portal in a heartbeat. If that guy completes a single scrimmage pass, we are having the debate. We're having the debate. He is winning national championships. In December, it was at Auburn. Auburn became an instant contender. I mean, we've heard so much about Ty, and he's been rather quiet. I don't know why everybody's trying to run him off, but definitely with Jimmy Hurt made a bunch of calls on Sunday. I think Ty did himself I think he helped himself out tremendously. Again, not going in the same situation as Jalen, but I do think that this push, I think there is some push between Jalen and Ty, which is what you want. We went, Travis and I have discussed this before in the past about that 2017 team, I think, where they didn't really have anybody pushing each other. But, I mean, you get better when someone's breathing down your neck.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, revisionist history and whatnot, think that Jalen Hurts didn't get better until he went to Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. The reality is, as soon as Tua Tagovailoa showed up on campus, Jalen started to make improvements as a passer. It wasn't exclusive to changing programs altogether and working. That helped. I think Lincoln did a good job with Jalen, but
sure,
yeah, that guy next to you on a daily basis definitely helps. Hey, Jimmy, as always, we appreciate you taking the time. Great stuff with Jimmy Stein. You're going to find him with us at BamaOnline.com on the roundtable. Have a great rest of your Monday. Don't look at that. Don't look at that eclipse directly, Jimmy. I mean, we need to.
I heard it's going to be dark. Why do we need glasses?
I just feel like, why am I looking at it? I felt this way when I was in school. They put a little pin, they poked a pencil hole in a piece of paper and told me to look at it. How is that even close to safe? I got a sheet of paper protecting my eyes. No, don't look at that. Watch it on YouTube.
Well, I mean, just like if you could just get under that desk, if there's an F4 tornado, you'll be all right too. Tim? Oh, geez.
I think I get some bad advice.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, thanks,
man.
guys.
We'll see you.
Thanks, guys.
Quad box now as we bring on our pal, Andrew Bone. Let's get into some recruiting, you guys, because as we previewed last Friday here on the YouTube home for BOL, incredibly busy stretch. So, Andrew, welcome aboard. And where are the commitments, man? I mean, come on, Tim. Andrew, what's up?
Andrew,
they have twice as many commitments right now.
Yeah, whatever.
Had in the last 4 years. So everybody's wanting. Of course, I think the biggest question is when's the offensive commitments going to happen? We got all these defensive guys that keep on jumping on board, but they're coming.
So give us the big story, one or two of the items from over the weekend as we, again, late last week kind of set the stage for you for what was going to transpire over Friday, really throughout the week, into the weekend, scrimmage on Saturday. Give us those one or two takeaways that you had from the weekend, Andrew.
I think Andrew Babaloa visiting Alabama, for the first time, getting him on campus, 5-star offensive lineman out of Kansas that Coach DeBoer, Courtney Morgan, those guys had recruited when they were at Washington. It is a kid that is, at a premium position. And, we were talking about how offensive line is such a big priority need in this year's recruiting class, especially at tackle. And Andrew Babaloa coming to campus was a, pretty big visit. And now we expect him to come back for an official visit, which is, kind of the goal. When you come in for these spring visits, you sit down with the coaching staff, you tour the campus, you see the facilities, you kind of figure out, is this a place where I can see myself in the future? And for Alabama, you want to get them back on campus. They don't want this to be the first visit. They want it to be, the last visit. They want it to be the first. So getting Andrew Babaloa back on campus probably in June for an official, looks pretty good. So that was probably the biggest name that was in town. Another guy that we had previously mentioned that was going to visit Justice Terry, 5-star defensive lineman out of Georgia, who's committed to USC. He ended up not making the trip over to Tuscaloosa this weekend. Not sure why not yet. He told us on either Thursday night or Friday morning that he was coming in for the weekend. Ended up not showing up. So still some work there on the defensive front with Justice Terry. So we'll see kind of what happens moving forward. But those were the 2 5-stars that we were expecting over the weekend. But so at least Andrew Babaloa made it to campus.
Yeah, and Tim, I'm still intrigued by these big guys that it seems like we've been talking about more anyway, right? It seems like it's been more line of scrimmage, defensive line, offensive line. Alabama trending you still think trending in a positive direction on those fronts?
Yeah, I do. I think what we're seeing overall is a little bit of a slowdown from that pace they had early on, which gives them more quality time with each player. I know Jackson Lloyd was in last week, got a lot of quality time. I think they're beginning to narrow it down. I mean, you've got guys, wide receivers that Tyler Williams got an offer. He's going to camp this year. Really good looking kid. Andrew and them reported on this weekend. They're able to whittle it down based on that. If you look at the trend, because they were at a pace, I'm just talking in general. I probably skipped your question and I apologize. But if you look at the pace of which they were bringing people in, we were wondering if it was sustainable. We didn't feel it was. But as you get now towards the end of practice, we've seen it slow down, more quality times, with these guys. Again, Andrew Babaloa and Jackson Lloyd being on campus and planning visits. Alone will get you excited if you're an offensive line guy. Defensive line, they're still working. A bunch of those guys. Sharma's one. Obviously, they have Antonio Coleman committed. He's back and forth with visiting Auburn. So there's, that's still some work to be done there.
So, Andrew, we know we've got A-Day coming up on Saturday. That's always a big weekend. It's still relatively early and things can change, as we know. But what's that shaping up to look like, maybe from a recruiting perspective?
Yeah, I think this whole week, I mean, you have recruits that are going to be visiting campus, leading up to the A-Day game. And what's going to be kind of crazy is, everybody's wondering who's all coming in for A-Day. Oh, it's going to be just a stacked A-Day event. You got to remember, we've talked about 150, 200 recruits that have been visiting Alabama over the course of the last 3 weeks. A lot of those guys aren't coming back. So the majority of your top targets probably aren't going to be on campus this weekend because they've already visited this spring. So you're still going to have some top guys that are going to be in town. Christian Garrett, who's a top 100 defensive lineman out of Georgia, he's going to be visiting. So, kind of intrigued to see how that visit goes this weekend as we, kind of piggyback off the defensive line talk. But Justin Hill out of Cincinnati is another kid that, very interested to see how his visit goes. He's an edge recruit that has been recruited by the Tide since the staff first arrived. Colin Hitzler had a great relationship with him when he was at Cincinnati and at Wisconsin. So that's a relationship that's gone for a long time. He's going to be visiting Tuscaloosa on Saturday. But before we get there, one more kid that's going to be in Tuscaloosa for a second time already this spring, Javion Hilson, Florida State commitment, former Alabama commit, flipped to Florida State shortly after Coach Saban retired. But there's still a lot of interest there. And getting him back on campus twice during the spring, already got an official visit set for June. That's somebody that we're watching very closely right now.
And Tim, it's out there, man. And it's just a week away, really, right? When you think about the next window for the transfer portal. And as a coaching staff, I'm wondering, how do you balance, yes, these high school visitors throughout this week, 8A, but also knowing what awaits just a week away and the activity that you anticipate Alabama having in that area?
Yeah. I don't know how they do it, honestly. I mean, there's so much. I mean, because, it's hard for, say, Kirby Smart, who's been there for a while. He knows his roster really well. But imagine being here 3 months, having to figure out your entire roster. Most of these guys you don't know. It's not like you came from an SEC school, you scouted them or familiar with them. But I'm sure they were familiar to some degree because they were both in the college football playoffs. But you're having to figure out an entire roster. And again, people, we talk about this. There's going to be portal activity in and portal activity out. We've said from day one that Kalen DeBoer would be active in the portal. His staff will be active in the portal because they're trying to fit what they need. And then there's guys that won't like Alabama. They won't like the system. They won't feel they're getting a fair chance, so they'll go. So the portal is going to give and take. How they're balancing it all, that's been one of the most impressive things of all this whole spring is how many guys they've had on campus, how they've handled it. And again, the reviews, Joseph would tell you, Andrew will tell you, I'll tell you, everything's been positive feedback from the people that have attended. And again, it's easy to miss a handshake in that setting, but this staff does a really good job of making sure they're bumping fish, shaking hands, hugging people, and getting all that done. So that portal window kind of gives me anxiety when you mention it. You know what I mean? Because I don't even care who goes in the portal. I'm 100% fan of go where you're happy. At some point I just became, hey, you got to go. You got to go. I got old. But the false narratives that are going with it, here it comes. We got all that coming. That's the hot takes are what's less fun. Hey, there's going to be activity in the portal. Portal's going to be fired. No shit. We know. It's the portal. It's like saying my front door is going to open and shut a lot. I got 4 kids. Also, well, I've got you in a cheerful mood. Y'all take 1 minute, like and subscribe. It cheers Andrew up. If you didn't like Jimmy, we bring Andrew in. There's a little bit of everybody. You get a little Jimmy, you get a little Andrew, you get too much of me and Travis. But give us a thumbs up, a like,
meet
and
and 3. Yeah.
Absolutely. Meet and 3. Give us a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe. We appreciate it. We're trying to get to 10K before this summer. So thank y'all for being here.
Absolutely. Hey, I was wondering, guys, you talk about early reviews, early returns with the staff. Andrew, is there a staff member or two? And I understand it's still a limited sample size that you hear increasingly glowing things about on the recruiting front from a staff perspective. And in today's game, you also have to understand support staffers now are taking on even more visible and starring kind of roles in that regard. Any of that from a staff perspective you're picking up on?
I mean, still kind of same old guys that are, that we've heard about for years with Coach Gillespie and Freddie Roach, obviously. But as far as new staff members, and we've mentioned these guys before, but Jamarcus Shepard, certainly a name on the recruiting trail that's been well received by a lot of guys, and certainly, gotten a lot of guys more interested in Alabama. Caleb Cunningham, 5-star wide receiver out of Mississippi, for instance. He's a guy that has set an official visit for the 3rd or 4th weekend of June. He didn't have Alabama in his top group before meeting with Coach Shep, and all of a sudden Alabama's in that top 2, top 3 for Caleb Cunningham as we kind of get into to summer official visits. I think from a support staff standpoint, Courtney Morgan's mentioned by pretty much everybody I contact, and I think when the staff first arrived at Alabama, there were some coaches that kind of had their hands tied. They couldn't go out on the road. They couldn't call recruits. So Courtney Morgan was doing a lot of that himself, but he also knew a lot of those guys before arriving in Tuscaloosa. So that's a guy that is building a lot of great relationships with kids, not only in, on the West Coast or in the Northeast, but all over the country, especially in the South, with a lot of guys that have visited campus over the course of the last month.
Hey, I know you guys like this too, but because you follow these recruits so closely, but now with the early enrollees, to just see the sort of immediate impact some of these guys make. I know it doesn't surprise you, Andrew, or you, Tim, but what we're hearing just from scrimmages, right? Caleb Odom. I don't think either one of you are surprised to hear good things about him. Maybe other people are a little more surprised to hear about Red Morgan. But when you think about potential first and second team guys for this 2024 team, Tim, there's quite a few, I would say.
Yeah, a lot of people weren't excited about Red Morgan. You know what I mean? There's that 3-star. That was the first thing that jumped out to him. I mean, the guy was committed to FSU. FSU was on fire recruiting. We loved him. I thought he was a complete and utter well, I thought he was a really good football player from everything you saw, but there wasn't a lot known about him with his speed. There wasn't a lot of, I don't think he got near the excitement. It was kind of quiet time of the year as well when he flipped. But I mean, I was a huge fan of his, but I did not expect this either, if I'm being honest. I didn't expect to be running in with the ones, and I knew there'd be openings. I knew he was kind of that, he's kind of that dog in him. That was the one thing I liked about him. He had that dog, when you watch his film, he was around the ball a lot. I feel the same way about Drake or Patrick. They might not be, their NFL measurables might not be perfect. Their vitals and all that stuff might, but they've got that football dog in them where the ball finds them. And Red was that guy who was around it a lot. But I remember distinctly, he was a 3-star. Wasn't a lot of people super jacked up about him. He got a bump later on as he improved. In fact, Charles Powers probably the only one that's got him ranked nationally in the top 200. I think he's in the 150 to 175 range when all was said and done. So I am not, Caleb doesn't surprise me. I mean, we knew what Caleb was. I believe he finished a 5-star with us at On 3, and we knew he was a matchup problem from day one. Can line up all over the field. But I do love hearing their names. I love hearing that they're already competing right now. Part of me thinks, you got to play true freshmen. But when you look at the true freshman like Caleb, you're not particularly surprised because he's going to be able to compete wherever he goes.
And Andrew, we think about the offensive line, maybe specifically, it's a developmental position, but I think even there, maybe a couple of these young guys, not so much plug and play like a Caden Proctor as a freshman, but again, from a depth perspective, because I think that's an area where, as much as anything, if Alabama goes to the portal, it's going to be with that in mind. Yes, you'd like to go perhaps and get a plug and play tackle, but even if it's a competitive situation that you're dropping a transfer into, you're bolstering your depth. That being said, young guys like Casey Poe, Joe Ionata, versatile, can play multiple spots on that offensive line. Those guys too, I guess, have a chance pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, I think any offensive lineman, if those guys can play multiple positions, they're not just they're not just a tackle, they're not just a center, they're not just a guard. They can move all across the line. Those guys usually have a chance to play a little bit earlier, and at least get a little bit of extra looks. If they're not deep enough at a certain position. So, yeah, I think that we've heard some glowing things about Joseph Ionata, of course, Casey Poe. Will Sanders is also another guy in that class. But, Joe Ionata was probably one of the guys that, a lot of people didn't know about going into, the summer last year. I think he was offered the first day of summer camp. And, everybody was wondering, well, what's happening on this offensive line recruiting front in for offering kids in camp? Coach Saban and that staff loved waiting until camp season to extend offers to players. And even guys that had offers, they weren't committable until they showed up at camp. So Joe Ionata showed up at camp, didn't have an offer before the camp started, got that offer committed, I think, that day. So that staff loved him, and we've heard some great things about him with this staff so far.
So Tim, what are we? Obviously, still a busy week with visitors coming on campus, culminating with A-Day. We talked about the transfer portal upon us. I guess May will be an evaluation period once again for staff to get out on the road. What's your big thing though for this next week that you're kind of keeping an eye on from the recruiting front?
Yeah, I think the portal from a team standpoint, recruiting just the visitors. I think it's, we didn't mention it, but Noah Carter and Ryan Williams will be there for A-Day or expected. That's big deals. That's a good deal to see them. Ryan's always on campus. You catch him almost any day of the week. But there's just a lot in general with Alabama. You have the Nate Oats rumors coming straight off of Final Four. You got an A-Day, which I don't know how you're not really excited to go to A-Day if you can, and if not, to at least watch it. It's going to be fantastic. The portal opens. I think it's on Monday. This is 16th, maybe through the 30th.
The 16th is a Tuesday.
So I think I'm pretty sure that might be, the thing.
I thought it was the 16th.
The thing that clouds the portal line is that it's often at midnight. So we're going the 15th, which is technically it's the 16th at
Monday
midnight.
Night late. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's going in. And a reminder, the school, the kids go into the portal, they have 2 days to actually put them in the portal. So I am expecting he's expected to go in the portals coming out as well. So, but for me, it's all about, with recruiting, I think they're kind of at a catch their breath pause phase. Cause let's be honest, they have earned it. That visitor list, like Andrew said, there are so many, absolute unbelievable amount of recruits they've had on campus. We never saw this under Nick Saban. So I think maybe they felt they were behind. And I think while they were rushing to, catch up, they might have moved ahead and pushed the pace of some other schools because I've seen a change. I've seen a change in the pace here.
I love to drop
T-Watts.
comments about Tim in his mid statements because they just rock his world. But Jamie M here, any truth to the T-Watts to UK rumor? Heard he's a package deal with Nate Oats. Tim, would you like to address that
I mean,
before
I'm
we
pretty
get out of
close
here?
to that Hoosier moment of if Coach stays, I stay. If Coach goes, I go. I'm pretty close. I like Nate. I just don't look. I do look good in blue. I'm not going to lie. I look fantastic. But
Here's
no,
the one that you hear it over and over again, and I just don't. I mean, David, we appreciate the comment for sure. No new arena plans might sway Oats to go to UK if there is enough interest from them.
I mean, listen, seriously, the fans want the
Get his
stadium more than
NIL up. If you want to help Nate Oats, get his NIL up.
the fans want the arena more than Nate Oats. I think I can 1,000% feel confident in saying that.
Yeah.
Is it ironic though that if he leaves, the $18 million can go to the arena? I mean, that's I think that's the definition of irony, right?
With Nick retired, it can go to the arena now.
Yeah. You know what? No, I do think
if Nick was still around, there'd be something else going up.
I think this is going to be an attractive job if it were to open again. And I think at some point it will open in the future down the road. I think Alabama basketball, I think Nate Oats did a fantastic job, and he might very well end up with the New York Knicks or
that's what I felt like. If he's going to go, it's going to be like an NBA gig. Is that?
I would. I mean, the NBA and college basketball.
Kentucky's right there. It's not that far off.
No. Kentucky's a great job. I mean, I don't think there's going to be, you'd be hurt. You know what I mean? It's like you'd be upset if he left for Kentucky, but everybody understands what Kentucky basketball is, with that said. But I don't think I've never heard, has Nate ever mentioned the new arena?
I've never heard him.
Like I've Googled it. I've not really found him like lobbying for it. But I tell you what, if he ever wanted to lobby for anything, now's the time. And if Hurley ever wanted to lobby for anything, now's the time. And Scott
I think there's new plan. There are plans for a new arena. It's not like there's not plans for a new arena. It's just all about.
Why are you doing air quotes like they're just imaginary plans?
I like them. I like it.
Andrew's like there's
I'm air quote guy
in our mind.
Well, our friend said that there's no new arena plans, but there are plans.
That's fair.
They're just not.
You're right.
Moving forward just yet. You got to get that money in. So
yeah.
Anyway, it's going to be busy on the round table. We feel confident there.
This is like the audio version of the round table right now. So you absolutely want to take part in that with us at BamaOnLine.com. Andrew, give us a big thing coming up here for the next week.
Big thing over the next week. One kid I think I'm going to watch pretty closely this weekend is Jaden Harmon, linebacker out of Rome High School in Georgia. Alabama has go on the round table. You look at the commitment list. There's a lot of linebackers in the class. They're not taking They're not taking many more. They might take one more inside linebacker. They're going to take some edge guys. But Jaden Harmon out of Rome, inside linebacker, staff absolutely loves him. I think that a decision could come relatively soon, so we're going to watch Jaden Harmon this week. You never know. I mean, there's always a new guy that can emerge. We saw some guys that visited Alabama over the weekend that we had not previously mentioned, and now we're saying that these guys are at the top of the recruiting wish list. And we got a really in-depth BOL war room on the round table today, so go check that out. It's filled with a lot of goodies that we put together last night for the fans. So go check it out. BOL War Room on the round table right now.
For those not familiar, the War Room's more than the Nuggets. This is like when you go and get the family. You get the nuggets for yourself, right? And if you're old guys like us, you get the largest amount for a single person. You get 12, not 6 or 8. The War Room is when you send your wife for all the kids and everybody. It's for the whole. It's the family-sized nuggets for those not that familiar. So it takes a little bit.
It's the 50 platter. Yeah, the 50-piece platter. Yeah.
Yes, it's the Giannis.
I think people will like it.
They should.
I think Jamie here either likes it or he's already thinking about lunch.
He likes his food. I know Jamie M fairly well.
Yeah, there we go.
He likes his food. He knows how to handle it. He'll be the
I like this. I like this one, especially for Tim from my buddy Paul.
Hey, I'm
Witt.
about to watch the Masters. You
Who
and Paul
you got in the Masters? Scheffler or the field? Looking for TR inside info. Andrew likes the golf too, I think. So
I like
Masters
I like the
picks.
Masters.
It's Masters Monday. Who do you like, Andrew?
The field.
I think it's either Scheffler or one of the live guys. I think it's as simple as that. I mean, the PGA Tour guys, Scheffler is the only one I'd feel comfortable putting anything resembling a coin on. Now, Tim, you're a fledgling PGA Tour golf fan here. We're working with you.
Here's the guy.
What's your pick?
I don't know his name, but I'm going to describe him. He's a big dude. His wife annoyed me on that show, The Golf Swing.
Wow, that doesn't narrow it down.
And he's married to, I think he's married to Wayne Gretzky's daughter.
Dustin Johnson.
That's a confident dude. That's a confident.
And he can win there. Yes.
He is that's my pick to click because I think that guy's got the mentality. Because when you go into golf, I know the frustration with my friends who've been playing for 30-something years now. They can get, like, I get videos of them losing their mind on a drive. Like they're so good. They're not that good. They have a 30-year head start, and I feel like I'm competitive. But I like that guy. I think he had confidence. I mean, you married Wayne Gretzky's daughter. You got to have some confidence.
I think
and he's good, right?
Yeah, he's confident, dude. He's got swagger. I think in a lot of ways he's oblivious to the world. DJ is, which isn't a bad thing in that sport, right? So
yeah.
All right,
I just saw him. What's the show, by the way, for the golf fans? Since Paul asked,
Full Swing, isn't it?
Full Swing, Paul. If you haven't seen it, I'm not a golf fan. I'm gonna watch this week for Travis.
Oh wow.
We're gonna talk about it next Monday or whatever. Whatever the next.
We appreciate that. Masters Monday. I can hear it. Dun, dun. I can hear the music. All right, guys. As always, appreciate you taking the time. Always hang out with us at BamaOnLine.com, the roundtable, our premium message board. Got a war room. I mean, that is synonymous with coverage at BamaOnline.com.
They're very rare. They're very rare. So
I mean, you get one of those. It's like, well, I mean, there's an eclipse today.
That's right. That's
same type of time frame there. So
I'm telling y'all, don't look at that thing without those goggles they give you when they dilate your eyes at the.
I'm putting my Ray-Bans on and giving it a whirl. You know, that's what I'm
doing. Or not to be political, but y'all remember the video of Trump looking up at it a couple of years ago? He's like,
yes. I want to be, that thing. I want to be like, have y'all seen the movie?
Look at it, it'll turn you orange. What's that?
Have y'all seen Ocean's 11?
Yes.
I want to be, do you remember the scene, which is one of the greatest scenes in cinematic history, is Don Cheadle's character is watching on TV as they blow up a building in Las Vegas. They tear it down to build a new one. And as they pan to the window, it's happening outside of his window, but he's watching it on TV. That's going to be me. Everybody's going to be in the yard. I'm going to be like, wow, that's crazy.
Man, one of my kids is driving to like Missouri to see it.
Oh, wow.
I'm not that committed.
Now, there's a lot of people. We had a poster break it down for us from our mailbag last week. We need to bump that. We need to find that and bump it because he broke it down, explained it. We have people traveling all over. It's a big deal.
Oh, I think the projection is like two this afternoon for Alabama.
Steve Wiltfong, from all the people
for
in
prime
the world,
viewing.
Steve Wiltfong has educated me that we're getting like 92% total eclipse. He's getting 100 in Indy. Steve Wiltfong and I, just so y'all know, the stuff we end up talking about is not always our job. Well, Steve said we're getting 92, and he was taunting us, Alabama. Steve taunted us because he's getting 100%. We're only getting 92.
Bomb. Yeah, that's a Fong bomb for the.
Well, it's his brother. Steve's probably he don't know anymore. His brother.
All right.
It's a Fong bomb was short, but he was taunting us because he's getting 100% and we're not. So
that's why maybe I guess folks are headed to the Midwest.
Big difference there.
Yeah. I guess it's clarity, it's going to be better that way.
They're getting total, it's going total dark for them.
Wow.
It's supposed to happen at 2:00 today, I believe, for us. So they're letting the kids out of school. So we got
I mean, they'll let the kids out of school for anything anymore. I mean, they don't even go to school.
How many presidents got a day? Damn.
All of them.
We got a president that President's Day that covers you all. If you were a president, it's President's Day. How in the hell did y'all all go get individuals?
We got that. This is Uncle Tim at the family reunion in May right here. we got him going right now.
Just so y'all know, I didn't get old and say get off my lawn. I said get off my lawn. Well, Travis will tell you in my 20s.
When he was 8. Yeah.
Yes. I was
Yeah.
get off my lawn.
Tim walked uphill to school both ways.
Both ways. Yeah. I
5
mean,
miles.
blizzards. Absolutely.
Y'all know where Pelham High School is? It's literally up a
Yes,
hill while you're
It
laughing.
is. That
is
one end
literally
zone at
up a
Pelham, it
hill.
goes off a cliff down there.
Pelham,
Yeah.
yeah. I skipped school one time and left. First time skipping and ran down the hill through the woods and learned about Briar Patch. It shredded my. I didn't know it was there.
Did it ruin your cargos? I mean,
I think I actually had on.
yeah. Did you have a Band-Aid in your cargos?
I did not have on cargos. No one had told me about it.
A whole medical kit.
Yeah.
It would have helped. I could have stitched myself up.
Looked like a
cargos.
paramedic. Yeah.
I would have had a camouflage uniform in there too, so I could just lay down and crawl it out.
Oh God.
All right, next week.
Yeah.
I'll have my master's review.
Yes.
I'll tell you. I'll have grades for the players.
Absolutely. Got
and
it.
their attitude.
Yeah, we may even change the background of this to green or something, maybe master's green. We got a lot for you though at BamaOnLine.com, so be sure to check that out. Also, again, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel here, we certainly hope you'll do that even after the last 3 or 4 minutes. Turn on the notifications, hit the like button. We'd appreciate that as well. For Tim Watts, Andrew Bone, Jimmy Stein, Travis Reier, thanking you. And once again, until next time, so long, everybody.